here we are on the very last day of 2015, January 1st, tomorrow, it's going to be 2016, the beginning of another year. And this particular Canadian continues to wonder at what time, which year, which month, which week, which day, which hour are we going to finally reach the point where the masses, the general populations of our countries, of this particular geographical landmass, of each of our particular geographical landmass, at what point? I mean, how many years living in the age of information, how many years have to go by before the general population become aware of what's truly happening? People like myself and many of you who watch my videos, as I've mentioned before, are far ahead. I mean, light years ahead of most when it comes to general understanding regarding not just economic, but social and political issues. You know what's going on. You know what's wrong. But as you're aware, as you must recognize, the majority of the population are still living in la-la land. They're still living in the delusional state, this mystical belief that everything's okay as long as they just keep getting their paycheck right and I don't know what, making minimum payments on their credit cards, stumbling along with their mortgage payments, trying to raise their children in this atmosphere of just hatred, division, and the politics of fear. I get most people just don't even want to think about it. They just want to put it in the back of their mind or put it at a site so they don't have to deal with it. Because I recognize, yes, we all have to try to get through our lives. But I just can't help but wonder at what point do the general masses, at what point do you recognize that putting the blinders on or pretending not to see or hear the reality that surrounds you or recognize it, is that only prolonging it? I mean, look at, since the financial crisis, the crash, right? The Great Recession of 2008, this will be 2016, right? So basically 8 years later, and we're still living in limbo. I don't understand how anyone thinks that that's a good thing. Rising and falling, unknowns and going through hard times and trials and tribulations, that is just a normal aspect of life. We don't live in a movie. We're not a play. Reality has its ups and downs. After the crash of 08, that was really what happened in 08. The message was sent strong and clear. The signal was sent. Things are fucked up. We've got to just wipe the slate clean and start anew. But instead of doing that, the central planners and those who rely on the central planners to sustain themselves, which is a large group, I think it's overwhelmingly now at this stage in the game, a majority of the people in any particular country just don't want to deal with reality. They just want to keep prolonging it, or especially the ones that are at the upper end and benefiting from all this shit. They don't want to go through a crash. They don't want the system to collapse so that things can start anew again. Even though, as anyone deep in their core, in their mind, anyone must understand that is truly the only way you can start again, is you have to hit bottom, then you can start building and going up. But trying to do it with shackles and chains and a foot on or a boot on your neck, it's just not going to happen. I mean, the central planners, the central bankers, the collective overlords, the government fucks. I mean, at some point in time, do you people not realize that all this shit, all this quantitative easing, printing money, retardedly ridiculous low interest rates to the point where actually savers are being penalized for trying to be fiscally responsible and prudent? I mean, all of this retarded stuff that has never happened through modern history. I mean, you even have some countries around the world that are given negative interest rates. I mean, negative. So in other words, they're charging you to try to save money. I mean, at what point do the lowly people, the lowly masses, at what point do you recognize and realize that I don't want to. I've never wanted to. I mean, it's not something anyone wakes up in the morning and says, yeah, I'd love to go through a really, really hard time in my life. No one wants to do that. But at some point in time, most people have to recognize that's the only way you get to start over. That's the only way you clear it all the shit. And then the sky's the limit once you hit the bottom. I know it sounds bad. I get that. And I don't want to hit bottom. Nobody wants to hit bottom. But at this stage of the game with the way the world is, with the way everything is so collectivized and centrally planned and manipulated, and it's like one big giant fucking boot on every human being on the planet standing on their neck. At some point in time, you don't want to just try to relieve the pressure somewhat by keeping pushing back and keep it pushing. At some point in time, you have to eliminate that boot. You have to make sure that boot goes away completely. That's the only way you're going to be able to truly stand up. You might think by building your strength up, or your resolve, or your ability to withstand that pressure is the way to go about it. But in reality, that none of those things are going to work, because for the little effort you put in, or even the extra effort you put in, only a little bit of it is going to actually go to giving you that strength. The rest of that energy is going to be wasted for the most part. The boot, actually all that effort depletes your energy, which actually is making that boot feel even heavier. We have to get rid of the boot on our necks. And that boot comes from collective indoctrination into the belief of statism. As long as people still continue to believe that the central planners and manipulators that represent that boot, as long as you believe that you have some magical capacity or capability to control that boot through some mystical entity called government, the longer you prolong your belief into that ridiculous notion, the worse it's getting. I mean, we're in 2016, like I said, 8 years later, and things are only getting worse. I mean, if you read through all of even the latest news this week, I mean, let's just go through a couple articles just real quick here. I'll avoid doing the whole thing. I'll just give you a few headlines more or less and stuff, and kind of give you a quick caption. So once again, CBC News Business. Here's one for you. Analysis. 7 things that could go horribly wrong in 2016. Forewarned is forearmed as we take a gloomy look around the world. And I mean, of course it talks about, if you pay any attention, you know what kind of shit's going on. Well, this one's the China crash. 2, emerging market bankruptcy. Oil to $20. Market meltdown. Escalating global conflicts, Canadian property crash, the potential for it, U.S. failed takeoff with all that. I mean, think of the fucking money and the resources and the expenditures and everything to try to prop up this crony system, this collectivized delusional system of oppression, to think that that's ever going to fucking work out properly for the people and that they'll just embrace and accept it. I mean, and if you think of all of these 7 things that are being listed, they all have one fucking giant, big, flashing neon sign fucking behind them saying, Central planning, central planning, central planning. That is the direct cause. All of these 7 things are the effect. The cause is central planning, using force and coercion and collectivism as a means for human cooperation and coexistence. That is the problem. That is at the heart and core of what's wrong with the whole world today. Is the oppression of the individual, the suppression of the individual, and forced collectivism. That, until you get rid of that, massively reduce to the point where it's almost eliminated, although we really do need to get to the point where we eliminate this shit, but we're not even close at this point to heading in that proper direction. So of course, you're still going to continue year after year after year of hearing these fucking just soul destroying, ambition hampering and hindering fucking narratives of just how terrible things are. Well, yeah, because you have to clear it all the bullshit. You have to hit rock bottom. That's what it comes down to. You can't stay in this fucking delusional concept, this mindset where you think you can just try to centrally, if we just haven't used central planning enough. We just haven't used enough force or coercion or theft or oppression. No. Increasing that is only going to make things worse. Stop believing these central planning narratives. These fucking idiots that tell you, oh, we just give us more power. Just give us more power and more time, and believe me, we'll fix everything. How's it working? The proof has got to be in the pudding. Reality versus rhetoric. When are you going to start accepting reality and start rejecting the fucking rhetoric? That's what needs to be done. Next. Listen to this. Financial Post. Outlook 2016. If you think groceries are expensive now, brace for more sticker shock in 2016. Yeah. More and more bad news. More bad news. There's just no way to get away from it. It's just a constant. I mean, people are inundated on a daily basis. I wonder more people aren't fucking suicidal with this kind of just this. I mean, just things aren't good. I mean, people are turning to more and more methods and means to try to distract themselves from reality. But are you not recognized after all these years, reality still exists? And matter of fact, reality is getting worse the more you think you can ignore it. You have to look at it. You have to face it head on. Stand strong. Deal with it. That's the only way things are ever going to get better. A dire thought. Globe and Mail, morning business briefing. A dire thought. Canada may never have escaped recession. So let's talk about this year, how we went through a recession for the first couple quarters. And they try to say, oh, it's a technical recession because you went through 2 quarters of deflation, right? Of reduced growth. Or actually negative growth. Which is actually contraction, right? But it's like they just keep going on and on about tinkering around the edges and playing games and instilling fear and shit into people without actually saying the proper things that need to be said. Well, that's what I do. So, read all these articles from these idiots, but recognize that they're still saying, oh, don't worry. We can just give the central planners, the media folks, the propagandists, let us spew whatever narrative we want. And don't worry, we'll figure out how to centrally plan and manipulate your life. And it'll work out beneficial for you and everyone else. It's never happened in human history, and it's not about to happen now. But that's what they want you to believe. This one. Another one. Actually, this one I actually want to read because I recognize Don Pittis, man. Oh, that guy from the CBC News Business Department. Yeah. He's a fucking Keynesian cheerleader of some sort because I've heard him bring up the Keynesian bullshit multiple times. And as most people that actually understand genuine economics, free market economics, not centrally planned and manipulative Keynesian bullshit fucking economics, will tell you is even Keynes himself would be outraged and shocked at the kind of after all these years. Even Keynes himself would say, okay, listen, hands off, let the shit happen, let the market fucking reflect reality, let the system crash, and we're just going to have to start over. The whole point was that the whole point of Keynes even was that you try to use centrally planning and all this fucking bullshit, which is still wrong, but it was only supposed to be as a temporary measure to get through the really rough times. It wasn't meant to continue for like I said, 8 years, couple more years, a decade. You're talking a whole person, a tenth of most human, actually more than a tenth of most human beings' lives now have been spent and in limbo and wasted. The misery, the pain, the anguish, the financial hardships, the personal and social degradation that's been happening as a result. I mean, at some point in time, you just got to recognize this shit's not worth it. It's not worth the fucking, it's detrimental to everyone's health. You know, let it go. Let it go. Stop trying to hold on and cling to those old fucking world beliefs in central planning. It's time to release your grip on power. Let the cards fall as they may. Let humans do what they do best. Flourish and prosper. But the only way it works, the only way humans can flourish and prosper in a proper manner that's good for not just themselves but everyone around them is through freedom. Economic and social freedoms. That's how humans prosper. That's how we strive to survive and thrive. Freedom's the only way. You can't use force, collectivism, coercion, theft, oppression. These things don't work. And central planners think that if they just ramp up more force, ramp up more theft, more social divide and collectivism, more wealth transfers, it doesn't fucking work. The proof now, I mean, we've had enough time, and in the future, when people talk about this stuff, they'll say, how did they not recognize that it was a failing fucking model? If they were proven year after 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 year that it don't work. Trillions of dollars of money printing, inflation like crazy, fucking just destroying so many people's lives, and it hasn't worked. But yet these idiots just keep trying to put forth the narrative that just give us a little more time. We'll do it. We can do it. We can do it. They're not going to do it. They're only going to make things fucking worse. They're only going to prolong the inevitable. It's time to rip off the Band-Aid. You can't just thinking things are going to heal while you keep tearing and tearing and tearing. Anyways, let's read into this article here. The picture of the monkeys. Yeah, I guess. Whatever, right? Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Polas wants you to let out your inner animal. We have strengthened our financial architecture to protect against future crises, Polis told us in a recent speech, sustaining growth and avoiding stagnation until such time as Keynes' animal spirits, which have been crushed over the past 7 years, revive. Animal spirits? You mean dancing with a lampshade hat on New Year's Eve? Well, something like that. Polis isn't the only one who thinks that's what Canada needs. And following recent news about the state of Canadian growth, especially the crumbling of the Canadian resource economy, it is worthwhile imagining a formula for success. Keynes' concept of animal spirits is in many ways completely contrary to some of the most hard-nosed concepts of modern economics. Grouped around what's called the efficient markets hypothesis, this conventional analysis puts its faith in what you might call the clockwork economy, In this conventional view, the wisdom of the free market sees every opportunity and exploits it. There is never any free money sitting around because someone immediately picks it up. But instructed by the irrational gloom of the Great Depression, Keynes saw other forces at work. He saw plenty of labor and plenty of need, but the clockwork economy failed to take advantage of those opportunities. The Keynesian analysis actually prefigured the recent enthusiasm for behavioral economics, which studies how people's feelings or a national mood set the pace for a country's economic success. See, they're trying to use, this is all psychological, where they think that they can control and manipulate people. Animal spirits, as if like everybody has this. Humans are not a robots all aligned. We're not a collective. We're not the fucking Borg. Animal spirits as a whole is trying to pretend that everybody thinks and feels the same way at all times at the same given moment. That's fucking complete bullshit. Genuine free market or Austrian economists will tell you and have pointed this out and have basically proven it time and time again. And they're proven to be correct once again now. Because, yeah, where's the animal spirits? It's like, I don't know how you could possibly think throwing a man in a cage, shackling him, taking away every bit of his freedoms, and saying, just give him enough time, he'll come out of his stupor. Sure, he's having a rough time right now because we took all of his fucking, self-esteem, self-respect, dignity, capabilities and ability to maintain or sustain himself or herself. But don't worry, give him enough time. He'll jump out of that funk. He'll get back to being the normal, inspirational or aspirational or hardworking, ethical human being that he once was. No. Humans have an instinct about them, whether they recognize or not, that most of them recognize that you're not going to challenge or rise to a challenge when you know that there's absolutely 0% chance of you overcoming that obstacle. If I can only jump 5 feet off the ground and the obstacle is 20 feet high, I mean, I'm not foolish enough. I mean, even a really ambitious person that don't understand the fundamentals of, how gravity and how much energy it would take, even if they try, I mean, they might try and they might expend a whole lot of time, energy, and resources trying to overcome that obstacle. But in the end, all that really happened is they wasted a whole lot of time, energy, and resources for nothing. The animal spirits, the human drive for prosperity and commitment to bettering themselves and those around them is not going to happen while they're feeling the heavy hand of central planners. It's not going to happen with the big brother peering over their shoulders. It's not going to happen with the boot standing on their neck. You're never going to see that happen, Pittis. Even Keynes would tell you this today, or tell you this now, if he were alive today. I think you really need to stop grazing the surface of some of the propaganda you've heard about Keynes, and maybe take some fucking time to actually really genuinely understand what even a central planner like Keynes was trying to suggest when he put forth the narrative of animal spirits. Keynes could have never believed, because back then, even back that long ago, 60, 70, whatever, 80 years ago, even that long ago, there was, even as oppressive as some of the regimes around the world might have been back then, even at the time he was alive, socialism, fascism, and communism was not nearly widespread and didn't have near as much power or influence over the masses of what we recognize today. Matter of fact, if Keynes had lived through from the time he passed till now, I'm sure his opinion would have changed dramatically. He wouldn't be the proponent and the cheerleader for the kind of central planning of economics that he was back then, because he would have had the evidence laid out before him just how detrimental that is. The proof has been there. It's there. It's there right now. But these idiots like to dig into, and try to find and grasp at any little tiny little thing that they can find where they can use a person's name or narrative that might have had at some point in time a substantial following, and try to use that and grasp onto that to hope and pray. It's like their last grasp at saying, we still believe central planning can work. In the end, you will all be proven to be just thinking or unthinking, believing in delusional concepts that have no real place in the real world. I know that will happen eventually. The problem, obviously, is the fact that why do so many people have to suffer? Because you fucking idiots are unwilling to let go of your grasp on that centrally planned narrative. Stop being such a bunch of fucking power-hungry control freaks. Stop believing in this fucking bullshit ideology of forced collectivism, of central planning, democracy. Let humans flourish. Take the good with the bad and everything in between, and you'll watch actually things will only get better. That's how we learn. That's how animals, humans, nature, that's how we evolve and adapt and progress. It's not going to happen trying to live in a delusional state. That's never going to happen. You have to face reality head on, deal with it. Let natural forces play out. Use proper logic, reasoning, and philosophy be your guiding principles, and you watch humanity take off once again. That's when you'll see humanity show its true capabilities. Just how free and prosperous we can all be. That's the end of my rant for this particular video. I hope some of you will like, share, and subscribe to this channel and help me as I try to spread these very important messages and information on to others, so that hopefully we can end this madness once and for all, or at least get a massive break. We need some breathing room here. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.